She and her husband are bullies, so she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud.
It's kind of wild how quickly things can flip in Hollywood. One day, you're the industry's golden girl, untouchable, admired, the perfect blend of charm and talent. And then, suddenly, the image you spent years crafting starts to crack. That's exactly what's happening to Blake Lively right now.
She seems like kind of a jerk. Wow, she's like kind of a bully. She's rather mean.
For years, people saw her as the effortlessly likable, always smiling Hollywood sweetheart. But if you look closer, past the magazine covers, the red carpet moments, the perfectly curated Instagram posts, there's a different story hiding underneath. A story that's been slowly unraveling. And it's not just one mistake that led to this moment. It's a pattern, a string of decisions, power plays, and burned bridges that are now catching up to her. So, how did it get to this point?
And she finally bumped into someone who was weak enough and not famous enough to stop her, right? This Justin Baldoni, most people had never even heard of him.
Blake Lively has always been that girl. She had the looks, the charm, and just the right amount of down-to-earth energy to make people believe she was one of the good ones. The kind of celebrity who seemed above the drama, the scandals, the pettiness. But Hollywood doesn't work like that. People talk. And when they do, you start to see the cracks in the polished exterior.
So she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud. When you pretend you want to do the one thing and you'll do the thing they're hiring you for, but all along you have secret plans to do something very, very different that's above your pay grade.
Take Gossip Girl, for example. It was the show that made her a star, the one that put her on the map. And on the surface, everything seemed great, successful show, an on-screen romance that turned into a real-life one, a career on the rise. But years later, an old interview surfaced, and it changed the way people saw her. Back in 2009, Blake casually admitted that when she first met Penn Badgley, the guy she was supposed to have chemistry with on-screen, she didn't like him. Not a big deal, right? Co-stars don't always get along. But instead of just keeping her distance or keeping it professional, she said she poisoned the cast against him.
A 2009 Glamour UK interview by Blake Lively. She was on the cover at the time, and in her interview, she admitted to trying to poison the cast of Gossip Girl, which is where she made her name.
She literally convinced everyone else to turn on him. And then, she admitted that Penn turned out to be a great guy. So, all of that? The manipulation, the drama? Completely unnecessary. That wasn't the only time people started questioning how Blake operated behind the scenes.
Against her co-star, Penn Badgley, who played her love interest, Dan Humphrey, on the show. She said, "At first I was so upset that they had hired him, I actually poisoned the whole cast against him." And she goes on to say, but then they noticed that he wasn't a jerk and was actually a nice, charming person, and almost immediately I realized it too. But it took me about a week to admit it.
If there's one moment that really shifted the way people see Blake, it's what happened with It Ends With Us. Now, this was supposed to be a big deal. A huge book adaptation, a passionate fan base, and a deeply emotional story. Justin Baldoni had been working on this for years. He secured the rights, developed the film, put everything into it. And then Blake came on board. At first, it seemed like a great match. A high-profile actress for a high-profile project. But almost immediately, things started to change.
She wrested his movie away from him and decided to try to hurt him with petty, made-up, out-of-context complaints when he pushed back even in the mildest way.
She wasn't just showing up, learning her lines, and playing the role of Lily Bloom. She started pushing for changes, and not small ones. Full rewrites. Entire scenes reworked to fit her vision. Now, actors giving input isn't unusual, but this went way beyond that. She was making directorial decisions, overriding the creative team.
Lively is caught in old footage, revealing that yes, her secret plan is to always take control of the movies and lie to the directors.
The person who created the film, who had spent years bringing it to life, was suddenly being edged out of his own project. And then the premiere happened. This was supposed to be Justin's moment too. But when he showed up, he wasn't even allowed on the main floor. He was kept in the basement while Blake took center stage. That's when people started realizing this wasn't just a movie role for her. This was a power move.
He sexual harassed her and then by the time they premiered the movie, they weren't even speaking to each other. She made him stay in the basement, and Ryan Reynolds turned on him too. And then she claimed that he unleashed a bad PR campaign against her.
If there's one person who doesn't hold back, it's Megyn Kelly. And when she dug into Blake's history, things got even messier. In a Resurfaced 2022 interview, Blake admitted that she had a habit of taking control of films. She laughed about how directors would hire her as an actress, and then, once she was in, she'd slowly start changing things, rewriting scenes, overriding decisions. And if they pushed back, she'd lie, tell them what they wanted to hear until she got what she wanted.
Well, yes. I mean, maybe someday you could be a producer or a screenwriter, but no one contracted with you to do that here. And that's another allegation, Holmes, is that she started to rewrite scenes that nobody had asked her to rewrite.
At the time, it probably seemed like a funny, confident moment, one of those "look how bold I am" speeches. But now that Justin Baldoni is taking legal action against her for doing exactly that, that clip has become something else entirely. It's no longer an empowering moment. It's evidence.
You knowingly admitted that's what you do. They want an actress, they hire an actress, they pay you to be an actress. That's your job. But then you do exactly what Justin's accusing you of.
This isn't just some messy behind-the-scenes drama anymore. This is starting to cost Blake her relationships in Hollywood. Right after the It Ends With Us scandal blew up, something interesting happened. Ryan Reynolds unfollowed Justin Baldoni on Instagram. No announcement, no comment, just a quiet, very public way of showing which side he was on. And then there was Taylor Swift. Blake and Taylor have been close for years. But as this drama unfolded, Taylor started distancing herself. Not making a scene, not getting involved, just stepping back. And in Hollywood, sometimes silence says more than words. If there was still any doubt about Blake's real personality, that disappeared when an old interview resurfaced. Back in 2016, during a press tour, a Swedish journalist congratulated Blake on her pregnancy. A simple, polite comment. But instead of smiling and saying thank you, Blake turned the moment into something else entirely. She looked the journalist up and down and mocked her body. Years later, she admitted that the moment was humiliating, that she felt trapped, powerless, unable to respond. And when the clip went viral, people realized this wasn't some one-time slip-up. This was a pattern. Blake had spent years carefully maintaining a perfect public image, but behind the scenes, there was a different version of her, a version that was finally being exposed.
The thing is, what I've learned in Hollywood is that people never apologize, which for me would be the most natural thing to do, you know? You do something, you say something, and then you own up to it. And the best thing and the most rewarding thing in the world is to actually apologize to someone.
Blake's team tried to control the damage, but it only made things worse. Suddenly, stories started coming out about Justin Baldoni, claims that he had fat-shamed Blake on set. But when texts leaked proving that the conversation was completely taken out of context, the entire thing fell apart. People weren't buying it anymore. And then came the lawsuit. Justin Baldoni wasn't just walking away from this. He was taking legal action, bringing receipts, showing exactly what had happened behind the scenes. And now, even people who had originally supported Blake, like It Ends With Us author Colleen Hoover, were stepping back. Hoover quietly erased every mention of Blake from her social media. No statements, no drama, just a clean break. For most people, this whole situation with Blake seems like it came out of nowhere. One day, she's a Hollywood favorite, and the next, she's being called out left and right. But when you really look at her career, there were warning signs, small moments that, at the time, didn't seem like a big deal. Take her relationship with the media. Unlike a lot of celebrities, Blake has always had a carefully controlled presence. She rarely gives interviews unless it benefits her. She doesn't get caught up in messy feuds. And when controversy does happen, it somehow never sticks to her.
Here we go, Blake Lively, facing another lawsuit in her ongoing It Ends With Us legal battle with co-star Justin Baldoni.
Like when she launched her lifestyle brand, Preserve. It was supposed to be her version of Goop, luxury, carefully curated, very on brand for the polished image she built. But when it flopped, she didn't take responsibility. Instead, she shut it down and brushed it off like it was just an experiment that ran its course. A failure? Sure, but not her failure. Or look at how she navigated her public relationships. With Penn Badgley, she went from actively turning the Gossip Girl cast against him to suddenly dating him, and when they broke up, it was so strategic that even the show's producers didn't realize for months. Then there was Leonardo DiCaprio, a whirlwind summer romance that conveniently gave her A-list credibility right before she landed her biggest roles. And then, of course, Ryan Reynolds. Now, obviously, relationships are complicated, and there's no way to know what happens behind closed doors. But in each case, Blake always seemed to come out exactly where she wanted to be, while the other person just faded into the background. And it's not just personal relationships. The same thing happened with projects she worked on. She knows how to position herself in just the right way, always in control, always the one who benefits the most. But now, that strategy isn't working. The things that once made her seem smart and calculated are now making her seem manipulative. And the people who once helped maintain her image, they're not playing along anymore. Because in Hollywood, you can only control the narrative for so long. Eventually, the truth finds its way out. Blake Lively has spent her entire career crafting an image of someone who is above the Hollywood drama. Someone likable, relatable, untouchable. But now, people are starting to see her differently. And the biggest question isn't just whether she can survive this scandal. It's whether the people she's alienated along the way are willing to let her. Because in Hollywood, reputations are built carefully. But when they fall apart, they fall fast. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you stayed till the end, comment "Justice for Justin." Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to me, and ring the bell so you will be first to know about newest drama.